circle is titled Cultivating Young Minds, Fertile Food and Farming Education. Now that's a pocket full of puns, but on a serious note, this is a very important area and an area that farmers have told AHDB that they want as a priority and we should invest more in. So yes, tonight we'll be talking all things food, farming, schools, stews and students, education and exams, curriculums and cooking in the classroom. I'm afraid to say Charlotte's already got her attention and Joe is definitely the teacher's pet.
Yeah.
Maybe all the way around.
Now, normally, as the regulars would know, is that the circle is a discussion group with some well-known faces from farming and social media, and we sit around a table and then we discuss the topic. However, tonight we thought we'll mix it up a bit. Firstly, we're also joined by Iona Corbett, Head of Food and Nutrition at Chipping Campden School, and we were going to have Andrew Hartshorn. If you're on social media, you might have seen we were going to try and be here, but he can't make it. As if though a bigger circle isn't enough, we've also then got a live audience in a theatre, and whoever's idea that was, we need to have a word. Anyway, so glad to have everybody here. We've got parents, we've got students, we've got farmers, teachers, everybody. But let's get stuck in. So we'll go around. Tell us a little bit of who you are, where you're from, what you do. Starting at the end there.
James Taylor, farm with my father Andrew on the Broughton Castle estate near Banbury, with traditional mixed farm. We try and engage the public in various ways, which we'll get onto, but with sheep, beef, cereals, poultry, switchit, and beeves. That's my honey there, bit of shameless product placement.
How much is a jar?
For you, $3.50.
That's very good value. I sell mine at double that. Good evening, folks. I'm really excited to be here. My name's Tom Martin. On social media as Farmer Tom. We're passionate on our farm about helping people to see what happens on the other side of the farm gate. We have a medium-sized family farm. We're mixed, so we have combinable crops. We have some grassland. And we also run a charity called Farmer Time, where we link up farmers and classrooms around the UK and in fact around the world for a series of video calls so people can really see what we get up to and how we produce food and why they can be proud to buy British produce.
And what is it called?
It's called Farmer Time.
Farmer Time.
Farmertime.uk.
Excellent. Iona.
Hi everyone, my name's Iona Corbett. I'm the Head of Food and Nutrition here at Chipping Campden School. I've come from a background on a dairy farm where I used to do school visits, as well as having been a teacher for a number of years now. But the farming and the education is where I have a passion.
Excellent.
My name is James Herrick. I'm a suckler beef and arable farmer from Leicestershire, but you might know me better from YouTube and Instagram as at Baldy's Farm.
Why is that?
you wouldn't know. You're all right with the glare. We're all right.
I was literally going to say exactly the same thing. My name's Charlotte Ashley, and we are beef and sheep up in Cumbria. It's a long way away, I can tell you right now. We're going into dairy imminently, so that's another interesting project for us. But we have a YouTube channel as well, which I want to say it's predominantly watched by a younger audience, so I have to tailor the content towards that.
Well, I'm... Oh.
You carry on.
So yeah, I'm Joe Seels. We are beef and arable farmers up in South Yorkshire, and yeah, I've done a daily blog now for I think we're coming up towards 2 years, just about life on our farm and what goes on in producing food for the nation, I suppose. So we don't really try and push it as anything educational, but people do learn things along the way, and yeah, it seems to have been received well. So yeah, it's Joe Seels on YouTube and on TikTok.
Roz.
I'm Roz Reynolds, and I head up the education work at AHDB, and our focus is on educating consumers of the future, and that includes delivering an education programme called Food: A Fact of Life in partnership with the British Nutrition Foundation.
Excellent, thank you. We'll dive in with loads of questions. If you're listening online, put your questions in wherever you're listening. We've got a couple of people monitoring those, and they'll be sending that in to me here, and we'll ask those questions. That's really what brings us all alive. We'll ask some questions of the audience. In a minute, Charlotte is going to jump in with some questions to our panel, and they can have the rest of the evening to think about that. And then at the end of the evening, we'll hear what they say. So careful, he's Charlotte.
Sorry.
We'll hear the questions the answers at the end of the evening. For the first person to answer the first question right on where, Joe?
YouTube.
So that person can win.
Yeah. Oh yeah, YouTube.
Win an AgriLeader mug. Brilliant.
Have you got that here, Isaac?
Hey?
You got that here?
So not in front of me, Joe. So,
Bit of product placement.
so should have done. Right, Charlotte, fire away with the questions.
So, question 1: how many Food: A Fact of Life classroom resources were downloaded in the last year? Are you writing that down?
Are you on Google now?
Well,
No, I'm just making a note.
we'll ask the questions later.
No cheating,
James and I are
thank you
taking
very
this
much.
seriously.
Question 2: how many teacher training events did AHDB and the British Nutrition Foundation put on last year? Covering up the answers. I know what he's like.
Oh, I didn't realise the answers were on there.
How many delegates attended those teacher training events? How many Twitter followers has Food: A Fact of Life got? And what age range does our resources cover?
So if you're listening online, put your answers in there, play along, and any questions you've got, any comments, then put them in there and we'll get them fired in. Right. So last week, AHDB and Leaf organised the Farming Food for You conference at Plumpton College, where there were 150 secondary school students. Roz, tell us about that. And a couple of these guys went along and will send their homework afterwards, how much they learned in class that day. But tell us about that.
Yeah, so at AHDB, we have our education work that covers really 3 themes. So where food comes from, healthy eating and cooking. And this event that we delivered in partnership with Leaf Education was really focused on bringing to life that where food comes from message. And we particularly wanted to focus on secondary school students because we know that often opportunities to get out on farm are perhaps more limited at secondary school age. And so we partnered with Leaf Education and delivered the event at Plumpton College, which is an agricultural college down in East Sussex. We had 150 GCSE students from business studies, but also food preparation and nutrition. And they got a fully immersive day. So they got to go around the college farms. I know you guys also got to check out the farm, didn't you? As they bring to life that where food comes from message, but also get to meet people from the, obviously got to meet you farmers, but also we had other people from the industry as well, so local food producers talk about their products. And we also had workshops around the business aspects of producing food, but also bakery and nutrition activities as well.
It was a good setup there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So what did you learn, Joe? What did you see?
Yeah, lots. Bakery. They're teaching them how to make bread.
Yeah, we saw that. It was quite interesting because they were tying in, they were teaching them about the different protein levels and when to use it.
The wheat's coming from just over the hill, bringing it all back to the farm.
Vitamin E is good for your hair. I remember that one.
Just to rub it in.
It was interesting. Yeah, I've already got that noted down. It was interesting, like the butchery and everything.
Yeah,
we snuck off into the butchery.
Was really
that was
good.
amazing. But then, all the different produce and just teaching kids. I was about sort of farm finance, things like that, and which was interesting. About how much kit costs, and it was good.
I think a lot of the kids were switched on as well, because they were butchering a lamb there, weren't they? And we asked him if he'd had any silly questions as to what the lamb was. I think he said that one person after it was a dog, but most of the students who were there were actually
and they weren't
switched on to farm.
I mean, it's in the most respectful way. They were as childish about it as what I thought they would be either. The questions were relatively grown up, and there was no silly squealing and carrying on. It was literally, he was butchering a lamb in front of them, and they just kind of watched and went, oh, wow, which was a better response than what I thought he would have got.
Yeah, they were pretty mesmerised by it.
And it was. I thought they would have been a bit squeamish, a bit silly, but they really weren't, were they?
They weren't.
I think the engagement was amazing. It was actually really encouraging. And we forget sometimes as farmers how interesting what we get to do every day is. But the thing that I think really impressed me was to local business owners who all running their own P&L, all running their own balance sheet, all worrying about paying staff, about about their markets. So they were not only learning about where their food comes from and the elements of nutrition, but they were learning about running a small business, about the commerciality as well. And that was just osmosing in as all the other subject matter happened. So that was great to see, actually, really encouraging.
See, those kind of events promote so much cross-curricular opportunities, and I think that's sometimes where we don't do what we should be doing in schools. I think we need to be liaising more with other departments and minor studies as well, previously at A-level and GCSE. So I can see where those opportunities come. And I think where we need to be cashing in is working with our colleagues a little bit more to go, right, okay, we're delivering this, what are you doing? How can we link it up? Let's look at it as a bigger project rather than just food and nutrition in isolation, business studies in isolation.
Word isolation. I was talking with some of the great audience members at the beginning about, a subject is really isolating, whereas actually when you look at food production, you've got all areas from mathematics through to all areas of science and technology, software, and just all kinds of areas as well. And there isn't, you don't pick a subject, actually move through various different subjects.
That's the bit I enjoyed about it, actually, looking at farming and the associated industries with it that go along with it. I think it probably, you maybe weren't going to inspire the children to want to be a farmer, but to open their eyes to other possibilities. I think that was quite a nice thing. It was interesting.
And the whole connection back to food and where it comes from, how do you think that landed, or what did you pick up on that?
I watched a group of, I think they were food technology students, and they were talking to one of the ladies there who had a farm shop, and it was venison, and she was explaining about seasonality and things like that, and they didn't leave. They just stood listening to her, and I thought she just had them, and she was explaining to them how we have a shooting season and things like that, and that's not something I would have been able to explain to them, and they took it all in, which was. It was just good to see engaging with them.
I was talking to this one lad, and I was saying we were looking around the dairy part, and so all the cows were there, and I said they're in the stalls like that, and they're laid down, and then the pee from the back end, so that's why the stalls are all clean and blah blah blah. And he says, "Are they all females then?" I'm like, I should have gone back to basics. Yes, they are all female, and I'm telling him a bit more technical, and I needed to cover the basics rather than start at the other end.
And Roz and Iona, maybe, is that, how do you find that balance of not teaching people to suck eggs, but how do you pitch it, or how do you find out, and bring maybe some new guys in that then get kids on school as well?
I think what was really great on the day was some of the technology. That was a real entry point in terms of, because so they had robotic milking there, and that really kind of connection. And I think it's also that in terms of the industry is so forward looking and the technology, and that it's possibly not what they thought. So actually that kind of possibly connected with something that they were interested in themselves as well. I think some of you guys were quite fascinated by that, but also
I like it.
how taken they were with robotics and things, and it is that it's in terms of the kind of wider supporting industries as well, that sometimes there's an opportunity and accessing.
If you want to send up a dairy and have a chat to Charlotte.
Yeah, well, that's it. We were looking at robots big time, weren't we?
I've got a perfect caravan.
But it was really good. I quite liked the fact that we had so many. All the wider industry and then obviously at farming all in the same place together. So it did give that sort of reality. I think a lot of them perhaps thought of farming as being a farmer, whereas you stick them all in that room and they go walk around the farm, but they can go actually do something in a tractor dealership, or you could work in a bakery and it's like a subsidiary industry, but within the wider industry of agriculture, which I thought was quite good to show them.
I think going back to gaps of knowledge and how far back to basics do you need to go, certainly with our year 7s we do a baseline of what have you brought up with you from primary school. Do you know where your food comes from? How much of that element do you know? Have you covered the healthy eat well guide plate? They kind of know the basics of that side of things, but then when you start going into nitty gritty, certainly when we were doing where's your food come from when we're looking at rearing it, growing it, catching it, foraging it. What other byproducts come from animals? So cows, we've got dairy, we've got leather, we've got beef, we've got, and that realization of actually milk isn't going to come from a beef cow necessarily. There's dairy, there's different breeds, bred for different the gender, etc. So you start picking out those little things, and then you go, okay, let's stop, let's plug these gaps before we move on.
As a teacher, is that your choice how in depth you go, or is there a set guideline for what you should be teaching?
There's the curriculums laid out for us, so we have to cover where our food comes from, food provenance, labelling, all that side of things, making sure that they understand that it comes from, it's either caught, reared, grown, or foraged. I guess I've got the benefit of having lived on a dairy farm, so I know sort of the more technical side of it. So I can go in and use my personal experience, and I think lots of teachers bring their own personal experience to the table, and that's what makes it engaging to students.
Yeah, but when they don't have that background,
when they don't have that background, how do you do it?
Yeah, one of the teachers on the teacher centre, I'll just bring it up for you actually. Bear with me a minute. Jenna Corbett just said, I've no experience of what farming entails and what crops are grown, produce reared, etc. I'm very much relying on programmes like Countryfile, etc. I'm trying to plan a trip to Lancashire Farm Education Centre to help both myself and my students understand more, as I find I retain things better if I'm immersed in the experience. The struggle is for schools trying to get trips out. I think food education is the biggest, most important topic for health, farming, sustainability, you name it. Everyone should know where their food comes from and understand what goes into producing it, hopefully preventing more food waste. And if you haven't got access to it, it makes it really hard. And I think from a secondary school perspective, there's a lot of great work being done. Primary schools find it a lot easier to get kids out onto farm, but the time constraints on the secondary curriculum are so tight and so restrictive, particularly when you're working with exam groups.
So how do we interest teachers in that? We're thinking about interesting and engaging children, but actually, if the gatekeeper is teachers, we've got an in with you because you brought up on a dairy farm, you've got that knowledge. You're not baffled by some of the weird language we might use, but how do we actually engage teachers? Is it making the curriculum more applicable? I don't know.
I think it's actually when we're teaching, we need access to resources that we can use in class environment, but is on farm. So there's that crossover, which I guess you do a lot through your. I'm going to get it wrong now. Farmer time, yeah. And somebody did say on.
I'm just going to bring James in because you do a lot of bringing.
Yeah, I mean, a message I wanted to get across is that there's probably farmers watching this.
Just tell us what you do first of all.
Yeah, so I do a few things. So we do school visits. So I was just speaking to Bob Harrison and the audience, and the numbers of school visits he does a year puts me to shame. But we do sort of about 25 a year, and we tend to sort of batch them at lambing time and calving. So we do really immersive visits. I try and do 6 or 7 very hands-on activities, keep people busy. Just done some autumn visits where we do calf feeding. I've some day cross calves for people to feed. We do apple pressing, go and dig potatoes. People have got some to take home. We've got some hens on the beekeeper, got display hive, etc. So it's very sort of hands-on. We were saying about this, it's easier to get primary schools out. That's true, although a lot still find transport costs a real barrier. But the message I just want to get across is that if you're a farmer, watch this, if you've never done a school visit, there's a lot of help out there, and it's actually a lot of fun. You don't have to spend a huge amount of resources. What I do is really sort of low cost. It's just time, enthusiasm, get some messages across, try and get that sort of wow factor, because there's a lot of things we do which we sort of take for granted because we see it every day. But actually, when people experience it for the first time, it's a real joy to see the sense of enjoyment.
But like Joe's thing of the cow.
Yeah.
Roz.
Yeah, so you were mentioning in terms of support for farmers who might be interested in hosting school visits. So that's something that AHDB is doing. So we're running a pilot at the moment. So we're supporting 20 farmers who we've recruited via an open application process. And actually today I was on one of the training courses with 10 farmers who put themselves forward, as I say, to host visits, and they're new to it. And today they were doing presentations about what they would deliver on farm, and it was just fantastic because we've talked about those personal stories and that connection and that passion, and that really came through today from those farmers kind of presenting back. So It's anything from in terms of why they love cows and also their sheep, and talking about the animal welfare, but also about soil health and the importance of soil, and also things around kind of carbon as well. So bringing some of the sustainability messages in, and it was brilliant. So that's just part of the support program that we're doing. They're also going to be one-to-one support, and also towards the cost of coaches, because we know that is a barrier. So having a pot of money available for that.
So my wife's a teacher. She says the risk assessments that you have to do to go on a school trip.
That's our barrier, to be perfectly
It's
honest.
a barrier for
And I help with.
Yeah, so that was a big part of the first day of the training course. There's a day or so with the second day, but actually the first day was looking at some of those considerations around health and safety, and how to put together that risk assessment and work with schools as well to get that over.
I find generally, the first time a teacher comes out, they can be anxious about that. Once they've come out and they see you've got common sense, you've had a look around, you've tried to mitigate risks, they're generally pretty okay with it. I think once you've got a teacher out for the first time, it's very rare that they don't want to come out again.
Yeah.
But then your issue is then when that teacher moves on, you've got to make the case all over again.
Do you bring teachers out before the class comes?
Some
so they'll
do.
do a pre-visit?
Yeah, most do. Some are more laid back than others.
So part of the kind of on the training that I had, they were saying how important that pre-visit is, and perhaps allaying some of the concerns that you mentioned initially, but to run through that. So
I think also finding the links as well with local farmers or what have you, where you can go out, and a countryside classroom is really good for teachers if they don't know where to turn to for finding someone to link up with. I know we've been on that before, and certainly doing their CVAS accreditation, the training that you were talking about, Roz, is a great way for them to engage with with schools as well.
And obviously then we've got Farmer Time. Tell us a bit about that. How does that connect?
I'd love to tell you about Farmer Time. Farmer Time fell in our lap as an idea 7 years ago. As I said earlier, we link up farmers. Each farmer in the UK has their own classroom somewhere else in the UK. And the farmer and the teacher will get to know each other. The teacher will explain a bit about the curriculum, the farmer a bit about the farm. And then the teacher will say, at the moment we're studying, and it could be genetics, it could be poo or reproduction or climate change or water or weather or soils or pollinators or root vegetables, you name it. And the curriculum is incredibly broad, as it should be. But equally, I think what our teachers are amazed by as they progress with Farmer Time is how many elements are appropriate to or can be illustrated on the farm. I got a call from a friend of mine the other day, and he just put me on the spot live. He said, "My class are here, Tom, and they want to help you out with your fencing problem." I said, "All right, tell me, how can you help me out?" And they said, "Well, we know you've got this field you need to fence, and we've calculated how much fencing, how many meters of fencing you need to buy, and how much it's going to cost you." And so they told me. It was clearly some kind of made-up field, or he'd found it on Google Earth. But they'd done that, and that was bringing maths in. And using that as an illustration, because we know that some children learn very visually.
Yeah.
Some people learn very experientially, and others, they can read a book and remember everything about it. But I think it's about bringing all those avenues of learning. And in farming, we can do that. In the countryside, we can do that. It's so experiential. And your visits, those children in their 40s will be able to tell you the name of one of your chickens, probably, because it stuck with them, and they'll be able to tell you also how that relates to their learning, because it's just sat in.
I think having that visual, having the practical experience, whether we're doing it in class or off site, it just brings it all home. It makes it more real to them. They're able to engage with it much more. It's great repeating information to them, whether it's the sciencey side of things or if it's talking about specific ingredients or diets. I was doing with my year 12s, we're looking at alternative diets and things like that. But when they actually do it and they have to think about it for themselves, that's when it makes it real for them. And they go, actually, can't do that because there's this problem, or I've got to find a solution to that problem. And they do. And certainly lower down the school, 7, 8 and 9, we just made a really simple mayonnaise the other day with year 9. And they were like, I never knew I could do this. Why am I buying mayonnaise? I can make it at home. And half of them took the recipe off. I'm like, I'm going to do this tonight. It's, and those sort of moments where those light bulb moments that they have, and they realise they can do it no problem at all. That's what you get. That's where I get.
Where you get your buzz from.
Yeah. Completely.
So how do we really change things? I mean, we're at a point in history where people have never been more interested in where their food comes from, but they've probably never been more divorced. They've probably never known less about it. Is it huge investment? Is it a complete way of thinking? Is it, what is it? What do you think as an educator?
I've got mixed views on it. I think I have my views as a teacher, but I also have my views as a parent. And I was talking to some colleagues today who are similar situation. They've got children of their own at high school age, and they were saying, sometimes for them what they want to come out with life skills, and it's more about learning how to cook food types so that they have those life skills to take on. Whereas they also were wanting them to have a better understanding of diets and not all these fad diets that we see on social media that they pick up on, and they don't really necessarily understand the nutritional side of it and possible loss they could be doing to themselves if they're not following the right, looking at the right nutrition, what they're feeding their bodies with. I think from the point of view of a teacher, I want to be able to educate them about their food in more detail, where it's coming from, the different processes that farmers are using to make it sustainable for us. And then ultimately also we've got to consider the cost implications to our parents when we're sorry, slight distraction by the music behind us.
Quite like
There's a dance class going on the next door. There's massive cost implications we're now facing. Cost of living crisis, is ingredients up. Yes, we get funding for pupil premium students, but we need to also consider that actually what we're asking parents to provide has to be affordable as well.
So we had a very sort of related question coming from Gareth Wynne Jones on Charlotte's. So just talking.
Hi, Gareth.
Hi, Gareth.
Hi,
Yeah.
But
See you next week.
how do we put that argument of a balanced diet is best? So how do we do that? Maybe sure.
It kind of that question, along with what, at no point in history at all have we ever been more available to people as farmers online. And it isn't. I'm not saying it's a good thing, because I also have an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I know that the social media, I'm not letting them on it at all, despite being a YouTuber, which is just so. But how many farmers are out there putting themselves out online and showing you the real, the struggles of farming, what actually goes on, and not necessarily the country-file farming, which is vastly different from what we're actually doing.
There's a fear as well from farmers. I think there's a fear.
Well, definitely, we know all about it. It can be, and Gareth definitely knows all about it. If you put the real farming out there, people don't. So
on your channels that you do, what do you reckon is the sort of percentage or the engagement that you get in public? Young people, compared to farmers. What are the kind of conversations that you have off the back of it?
I think we were discussing that earlier, weren't we? Saying that YouTube can be a bit of an echo chamber, in that you've got to be interested to watch that.
And they're all farmers anyway.
Okay.
TikTok, however,
completely
different, and the questions that were asked as well. Is that a dog? It's can cows walk backwards? Yes, it's a silly question.
Can they?
Yes, of course. They can also walk up steps. But silly questions like that we think are silly, people don't know this, and then they're going back to basics thing again, which is quite nice. And they've made that connection.
Once they've done that, it's you've got them. And then you just need to build on that.
They do end up coming through with a load more questions, which is quite a nice thing to see. But yeah, Gareth's right. It can be quite testing putting things out there, and I think you have to just be very wise to what you respond to.
Roz, from an AHDB perspective on the weed balance campaign and that side of things, so what do we put out there and using to help address this balance of fad diets, it was called?
Yeah, so we kind of promote a balanced diet, and as I mentioned, in terms of the Food Effective Life program, that Nutrition Foundation, that covers the whole balanced plate, and a core part of that is around healthy eating. And just picking up on what you were saying about cost of ingredients and cost of living crisis, so that's again something that we're looking at AHDB. It's about providing free ingredients into schools. So it's a pilot we're looking to deliver this year, because we know even before the cost of living crisis, wasn't it? It was a challenge in terms of and a barrier for practical food, particularly for high value products such as meat. So we're looking at putting in pork, beef, but also dairy and flour, and supporting that with resources for teachers to use as well.
I think even the example would be more and more aware. They're asking students to be able to produce. So, they've always had to show high-level skills at GCSE and A-level, but now they're saying to us, let's think about the cheaper cuts of meat that you could be using and utilising those more, as opposed to the prime cuts that they previously would have used to demonstrate high-level skills. Apparent in feedback this year was let's start looking at how we can be more affordable for families. Let's not be pushing too many things, but we can still achieve those high-level skills using alternative cuts of meat, etc. And Fish Heroes, which is a scheme that is run through the Teachers Centre in conjunction with the Teachers Centre UK Food Day, they've already started doing this kind of programme, providing free fish and mussels and things like shellfish to schools across the country, particularly where there is higher poverty levels, so that students can have those opportunities to work with products that they might not have used, ingredients that they may not have considered.
It's like a brilliant scheme. Yeah.
I don't know. I think we're going to get onto like barriers to visits and what we as an industry can do. But go back to the transport cost issue. Do you feel that? Does anyone feel that we as an industry should perhaps be doing more to help schools just physically can't get really want to? It's a bit piecemeal in terms of the support that they might be able to achieve. I mean, I speak to some teachers and they say if they ask parents for a voluntary contribution, less than half will give it, will be able to give it. So other than subsidy ourselves, do you think we should be doing more to try and reach?
I took some piglets in to school. Now I just stuck them in the trailer, and fortunately it was quite a decent trailer. I borrowed off somebody and I took them to school. I reversed in, opened the gates. Luckily there was a big barrier between it could have gone so badly wrong, as I say this live to people, that they had. Now, bear in mind, I come from a very, very rural community. It is a farming community. The tractors are bombing on through the villages. And some of the kids in this very, very small school had never seen a pig. And just that kind of little experience will stick with them. I don't think it necessarily needs to be a massive big farm visit. If ever try to do a little, I know everyone's going to go, take a cow to school, which you wouldn't be able to do that anyway. But do you know what I mean?
But I guess it is, the things, your social media channels that engage them. How many schools and farmers are engaged with?
We have 1,000 farmer teacher pairings. This is a real call to farmers, is that we have lots of teachers who are looking for a farmer who can just spare 15 minutes every 2 or 3 weeks to do a video call from your yard or from your field.
Plug away. How do they get involved? How to get farmers?
Farmertime.uk for more information. Sign up, and we'll pay. Just sign up as well. We might take a little bit longer to get you a farmer, but farmers, get on board. We want to give these teachers a great experience. We want to, what I'm hearing about the barriers, whether it's our health and safety or it's our whatever it might be, it's the cost of transport. If we want something enough, we'll find it there. And actually, Farmer Time is a way that just brings that excitement, the kind of interest, not only in our young people but our teachers. And I hear teachers go, "Oh, I never knew that. Oh, that's really interesting." And
if
actually,
we're doing that, the kids are definitely doing that.
Absolutely. And we had farmers who got letters from parents saying, because they'd shown a lamb being born, and the kids had gone home, and the parents wrote to the farmer to say, "This is an experience my child will never forget. Thank you." And it's bringing that excitement, which is what we all have. But it's getting that through.
And if they can't do a call, like you're saying, through Farmer Time, even if they could send in like video clips that we could then use as part of our teaching material. Because around Back British Farming Day at the beginning of September, wasn't it? And if you did a whole load of little video clips that were on social media, and they were brilliant. I could use them in my teaching. I could embed them. Andrew Ward from Wardy's Waffle. Hi, Andy.
Yeah.
He did one on baked beans and producing the first baked beans in the UK. And I showed that to the year 7s, and they were like, "What? Baked beans where they come from China? They come from America?" They were just mind blown that.
I was mind blown. I watched that video. It was a
good
video.
It was great. But those are the kind of things that really engage the kids and grasp their imagination, and then they open up with conversations, and that's what gets them questioning. So not only are we getting their attention, we're also encouraging them to question and not just take for granted what they see on TV or on Instagram or any of those other platforms. They're starting to question where their food is coming from and asking directly, well, what does that Doesn't that one of the questions that came off that was, what about all the air miles, the food miles, and that they're connecting the dots then.
And they're starting to formulate questions to think in the grey rather than the black and white.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's amazing. It's exciting, and that's where absolutely where we need to be. I send in when we plant beans on our farm. I send some beans into, and they'll plant some in the cold, some in the hot, some in the dark, some in the light. Some they'll water more than others, and all of a sudden they're on board. They're with me. They're watching things grow. We're competing to see who can, and it's immersive. And actually, then a lot of the other classroom learning, even when you're not on a farm visit or you're not part of Farmer Time call, what do you think Farmer Tom would be doing in this situation, or how would he be running this? And it's that different, that multimodal learning, which is so important.
So in a minute we'll take a few questions from the different channels, and we'll come to some audience questions as well. But remember to put them into whatever channel you're watching on, and we'll try and get to a few of them. So we've got Chris Newey from AHDB Facebook. Schools should reach out to the nearest agricultural dealer. We do a lot of work with college students, but nowhere near enough. So reaching out to agricultural dealers, I guess, is a bit of that point of some that auxiliary industries. So how do we get those people?
As a YouTuber, if Joe will know this and you'll know this, if you put a tractor on the thumbnail, bang, it's an instant hit. Now, if I put a sheep on, nah. And I think big machinery, as much as I hate to admit it, is an absolute hit with any youngsters. They just love it because it's big and it's shiny. And I don't think they necessarily correlate that with being expensive, even though we do. It's just big and shiny, and it's something that they don't ordinarily have. And I think that's a really good idea, getting, and I think they would be up for that. There's no reason why they couldn't take a tractor down to school.
And if you think about, every kid go through that period in their life where it's just
they love a
obsessed with tractors.
Yeah.
And every tractor that goes past is got to wave it, you got to pit your horn.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still there. But, I just think when you're driving, every farmer could do this. Like, this is just so easy. But like you were saying about kids waving to you, just wave back.
I always
it's just
do
that
it.
little,
and they just they light up straight away.
And then that's like a positive connection. And it's usually they're only like 3 or 4 when they're waving. I mean, you do get some older ones, and then you get stuff thrown at you.
She's knickers and roses.
Not in Barnsley.
Right, I'll move on very swiftly there, since this is before the watershed. Just a comment from Ollie Blogs. Ollie's missing us. Hi, Ollie. On Joe's thing, so we need to educate the teachers, not the children. So, and I think as engage, we should start using the word engage rather than comment.
And I can add to that. I've got a comment here from Millie Fife, who is saying, there's a whole generation who've missed out on this kind of education, and it's the parents as well. If we can help the parents we can fire their excitement and imagination. Sorry,
if we can educate the kids as well, it's like it can go back to the parents' like with sheep and keeping them on the lead and stuff, and dogs.
But just picking up on the teachers, so that is one of the things that we do as well in terms of teacher training. So James, you came and talked at our conference in London, didn't you? Yeah. Gave a presentation, and also something we're doing is actually trying to get that immersive and experiential learning for teachers. So we were in Northern Ireland with the British Nutrition Foundation at the weekend. So we were at Caffrey, so the agricultural college there, and we're looking to do something similar in England with Harper Adams in January. So bringing teachers along to have that experiential learning.
And how many of those have we had in the last year?
So conferences. Yeah. So we did 4 earlier this year. So in England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And then, as I say, we're doing this one in Northern Ireland at the weekend.
And online and virtual conferences and things?
So we do webinars throughout the year, and also practical workshops as well. So, yeah.
That was one of the questions.
Well, when you said it, I was like, no, Isaac, no.
We've got a question there from the audience.
What do you think the best way to encourage kids is, even ones that maybe in bigger cities that can't actually access the countryside, like areas like this?
Excellent. Just tell us who you are.
Archie from Chipping Campden School.
Right, Archie from Chipping. Yeah, I will. So Archie from Chipping Campden School saying, how do we engage kids that's maybe not in a rural, especially in the cities, and how do we get that more? I'm going to come to you here first, and then.
I think like the Food of Fact for Life resources are brilliant as a starting point for teachers, particularly that are in inner city schools, linking up with the likes of Tom here and what he's doing is a great starting point. There are lots of programs available. There are certainly countryside classrooms, quite a good way of linking up a little bit more. That's not just for rural schools. There's loads of resources on there for inner city schools as well. I don't know if you want to follow on from that.
And I think it's with any kind of education, learning, engagement is about finding out what people are interested in and go walking on that journey with them. I've had some great comments, Ben Martin and Jake Freestone, talking about actually how we link food with health. And if people are interested in going to the gym or in looking good, actually we can illustrate that as part of the food journey. So it's finding out what they're interested in and just going along with them. But I would also say to you that I've definitely learned there are as many people in my local village school who don't know about food and farming as there are right in the middle of Birmingham or in the middle of London. We've got a lot to learn. We've got a lot of work to do.
I would, yes.
Good question.
We're going to talk about the same thing.
Yeah, we are. Go on, you go.
Go on, Joe.
I was just going to say about on YouTube, I get a lot of comments from people saying, and I've done mowing before. I've done it on Farm Simulator, and like it's just a gateway to get people interested in farming and like these farming games that are out there.
Social media, and I know obviously I'm preaching to the choir, stood with these guys, but it's so accessible. Everybody has it. Children sit on it at night, and they do, especially in a city, especially if they can't get outside. Like my kids are lucky enough to be able to walk outside onto a yard full of animals. Not everybody can do that, and I am well aware of how very, very lucky we are to be able to do that. But social media is in the palm of the hand, and it's not uncool. Whereas if I was to say to somebody, an 11-year-old in the middle of a city, why don't you go on the Food Fact Farming for Life and all this? They're not going to. Let's be perfectly honest. They're not interested at all. And half of the time, they're not interested in where the food comes from. They are interested in messing around on Instagram and TikTok. However, we're all on TikTok trying to, push the message a little bit. And I think especially when we're quite good at keeping the content. We do get slated a little bit for being childish quite often, which I have come to terms with now because I'm a very sensible person. But I think it does still engage a younger audience. It might not be doing anything for me personally, but actually I can still have the conversations with a younger audience and hopefully still an adult audience. Whereas if I started talking about facts and figures and started getting really serious, you turn them off. And I think that's
an important thing because for what you guys are doing and sometimes what we have with this, it is that audience that we're trying to reach with this. You can't be too serious or too facts driven. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got a great farming simulator story. I'll tell you later because we're not going to get into it now. But I think another thing is we've got now, which is whatever you think of Jeremy Clarkson, has hit so many people who've never had anything to do with farms ever before. And it's engaged them and it's just got them thinking, which I think has been a real positive. And obviously that's something that's had multiple series. It's got more series coming out. And it's just a constant reinforcing that message, which I think is a real positive for us. And then it's something that, with social media, with Farmer Time, you can then build on that because it just gets them engaged in the topic.
I think also we as teachers can do things in school. It doesn't have to be about taking children off-site. We have certainly for Year 7, we've done Food and Farming Day here, whereby we've had local farm businesses come in. Lower Clopton Farm Shop's been in. We've had Leaf have been in. We've had Gorse Hill Dairy. They all come in and they talk to the students, and we're looking at developing that further. So it's not just Year 7, and it's developed into workshops and things like that for the upper age group. So we're looking at not just Key Stage 3, we're looking at Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5 moving forward. So far, it's only been done for Year 7, but there's so many opportunities. And actually, if we could get the likes of you guys into those sort of days, everybody's benefiting.
Can I ask? We'll have to repeat because you won't have a microphone. What do you think?
So I think definitely with the pairing up teachers to farm, I think that's a really effective method. And also, like when you said about bringing even just the tractor into schools, just so then you're able to get a bit more of a hands-on. I think it's a really good idea. Really clever.
Peter?
Brilliant, thank you. So that was kind of really used to kind of pair to run farmer time basically. That's brilliant. But also the kind of the experiential, just getting on board a tractor in the playground, and that's starting to kind of fire your interest, your engagement, your imagination. Thank you. Great response.
Iona, I think Archie's a star student.
Yeah, that's right.
Archie's going to help me set up this farming day. I was going to say, if we've got, for schools like Chipping Campden, we've got a lot of students from farming backgrounds, from agricultural backgrounds. I'd like to see more sort of food and farming ambassadors from within the student population to start sharing what they do on a day-to-day basis when they're going home from school and they're helping out on the farms. They can share as much as we can share, and they've probably got a far better insight and can actually teach us something about what they're doing.
More levels.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Just in terms of engaging older children at secondary schools who live locally and are particularly interested, I'm sure lots of other farmers do, we sort of do a very sort of informal traineeship on Saturdays, so we have a bit of a waiting list. So if anyone shows real interest, they want to come back, they just come around and do the shepherding with us, just help out with 13, 14-year-old lads, and quite a lot of them are from, all of them that have got involved from non-farming backgrounds, and quite a lot of them have then gone on to careers in farming. So rather than just during, obviously they've got to have means of transport, but my dad's sort of really good at it. He does it on Saturday mornings, and there's always lads and girls waiting to.
And I guess obviously there's some time invested from you and take up some time, but that hopefully pays more down the line.
I think those opportunities are great for them. I know when I was teaching business studies, I would quite often refer to the farmers in context. And I had 3 girls come and say, when it came to work experience time, Miss, can we come and do some work experience on your farm? 3 girls from non-farming backgrounds, but they were intrigued by what they'd heard and they wanted to see it in action. Just making those links with them.
Onto your dairy farm.
Yeah.
So you told them, just be careful when the tail lifts.
Yeah.
Good. Life experience.
Yes, it was.
So I've had Ian write on Charlotte's YouTube. So I used to go to meetings of BPEX and used to get pamphlets and things. What resources are available now? So that's one for you. And another one similar, Andrew Dennett on the AHDB LinkedIn saying, I teach at Kingston Moorwood College in Dorset, very interested in what resources are available. So and just talk people through a bit what is available.
Yeah, so we've got resources available. So we've got posters, sheets. I'm wearing one of our stickers. So is Isaac. So we've got stickers that are available as well. And in terms of kind of the wider consumer campaigns that AHDB runs, so we balance with the pop-ups here. We've also got information to be able to give away, including recipe booklets, etc.
The resources are great. There's knowledge organisers for all the different topics. There's video clips. There's recipes. There's activities. So certainly secondary ed, and it's broken down by key stage as well, which is really great. I use them quite a lot.
So we've got to be learning your language and speaking in key stages and curriculums rather than...
I had a lady get in touch with me about basically doing what you do, but I went, I've no idea. I haven't got a clue, and I didn't have a clue. And then she started talking about curriculums and fitting bits of farming into curriculum, and I was just like, wow, this is just it's pretty beyond me, but maybe it's not really.
How do you guys find that on your socials? Because we're divided by our language sometimes. We talk about drilling, and people think it's a hole in the wall. So how do you adapt your language and your terminology on your social media?
I think sometimes when you've got a visual stimulus as well, they can tie one to the other. So you can talk about drilling, but you've got a drill. So you're talking about what you they can see that. So it is a bit easier. It's probably more difficult when they don't have something that they can look at. It's like, oh, that's obviously what they're talking about. So I think I'm conscious of it, but I don't probably take as much note as I think.
Very conscious of it, and I will. It depends what platform it's on. If it's on TikTok, I will literally go, this is a crush, and this is how you go in a crush, and I'll go through the crush and say, and this closes here, and it doesn't crush anything, and it doesn't hurt, and like it would be very simple. Whereas on YouTube, I do find myself, because I'm speaking to farmers, say, I'm not being patronising to anyone, but just in case anyone doesn't know, this is what this does. And it's a hard one to try and get around because you alienate one audience and bring another one in.
You're not from a farming background. Do you think that's helped?
Yes, very much. Very, very much. I had to learn.
And it was only when I married a dairy farmer and he was talking at me like I knew what he was talking about, and
They do that.
and then I would be doing the same
Just
thing
dairy
talking
farmers.
about from an education point of view, and it'd be going over his head. So we had to somehow get to a point where we were like, okay, this is what you, or if we had school visits coming out, he was doing his stuff, I'd be breaking it down into layperson's talk and almost humanising it to if the cows
I think
were
the
human.
children
Yeah, I
are
think
quite
if I
often
keep it
polite,
simple.
aren't they? And they won't necessarily say, I don't understand you.
I think
I
because
just say I'm feeding the cows all the time. I've not got a cow on farm.
Yeah,
They're all
no.
bullocks and heifers. But
Yeah,
as soon as you start saying like, oh, this looks here and this, and if
but
people
even
don't
sometimes for
terminology-
farmers is confusing
Yeah.
because like some people call it one thing and some people call it another depending on where you are in the country.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
We had a question there from the audience. Tell us who you are.
Rob Harrison, local dairy farmer. I suppose as a dairy farmer, I think there's a lot of misinformation around, certainly around climate change and that cows are bad for the environment. How do we put across to I suppose it's everybody, but certainly educating or trying to make sure that everybody understands. It's quite a complex area, isn't it? Really. So how do we put that across so people understand that cows aren't bad? They do a lot of good in the world as well. And actually, it's behind, isn't it? It's about a balanced diet. It's about all sorts of things.
So Rob Harrison, local dairy farmer, asking about how do we get the message out there around environment and some the bigger picture, as well as just about food and farming. So how do we get that wider message out there?
Just keep pushing the truth. I think if you end up with comments, which you very often do, that are sadly misinformed, should we say, don't engage with them. You can, and it might be the wrong thing to say, and Izak might completely disagree with me from a professional perspective, but from a personal perspective on social media, you're banging your head against a brick wall half the time. All you can do is show your truth and what you do. And if you, like you said, you have a visual aid with you because you're actually on the farm, so you can't necessarily argue with it too much. But I just think showing what you do in a more natural way instead of maybe facts and figures. Do you know what I mean? It is a hard one. It is a hard one because like Gareth, who will maybe still be watching, loves the argument. He'll take them on. Like, he loves it. I don't, and I find myself getting tongue tied, and then I end up getting really annoyed about it, and then I'll sit there and I'll be seething, sat on the sofa, annoyed at my phone, and then you just think, why am I doing it? And it takes all the fun out of it. But there will be resources, won't there, available to actually put these things right. Well, I once asked, I don't know if this is the right thing to say. I once asked about, was there a database of facts and figures that we can access to be able to combat misinformation? And I think there is sort of a database, isn't there? But it's maybe not necessarily accessible to everyone because it can be changed negatively, should we say? Is that right?
I'm not quite sure on that one.
So something that we do is we challenge misinformation, especially around adverts or published papers or like that. So you can email into AHDB and we'll review it and then send challenges. And we've had some great success with some campaigns by Oatly, for instance, and they had to retract some of their statements. So that is something that we do on behalf of levy payers. So yeah.
On visits, I dig a soil pit. We've got organic matters between 10 and 13% on arable land, and that's specifically because we keep livestock in the arable rotation. So I try and just make it very practical and compare a healthy soil with benefiting from livestock and one that's not.
Yeah, I keep talking about the cycle. How we're mucking out, we're putting that on the land to grow the next crop, to feed the cattle, to bed them down.
And the range of habitats and the fact we've got wildflower meadows with like over 100 species of grass, and that's specifically because of the way the cattle graze. And so we try and bring in the system and the sort of habitats and the whole ecosystem.
And especially with the biodiversity and that being more on people's minds. And I think that's a very important message to get out there.
Engaging with other subject areas as well, looking at your geography students and things like that, your land and environment students, not just food teachers.
I think one of the problems with misinformation is it's often a very simple and easy message that they're trying to put across. So they'll just say like, oh, cows are bad for the planet, stop eating beef. And you're going, well, actually, no. But to explain why not just takes so much more that it turns them off. And to try and keep your message short and sharp is something you probably need to do. And it might mean that you have to try and split that up into multiple messages in order to get it across. But yeah, it is difficult sometimes because it's very easy to say don't do something and to get someone to go, okay, because they feel like they shouldn't do it and it's bad. But to try and get that message over, actually, no, it's okay. It's always a more of a difficult fight, I think.
A lot of it's in your framing. So, Rob, how I approach this is we talk about mimicking nature. We look back at how our deepest soils were produced by megafauna, which cows are, passing across the prairies, the plains. That's the alpha soils, the Andes soils, for those who are really into their soils. In meters deep, thick humus, and that's then built up to become the world's third biggest carbon sink behind oceans and fossil carbon. So all of a sudden, you've reframed it. You're into that, maybe a geographical narrative, and actually you're owning the place rather than saying no, it isn't. Because no, it isn't a really difficult argument to come to, or I think you're wrong, because then it becomes into opinion. Actually, if we start with let's get behind this, let's get underneath it, and let's get into something that we can really communicate, mimicking nature, for example, then we can get that correct message across. It's not about winning; it's about
I think it depends on what level you're talking to people, and if you're talking to a 12-year-old who's got it in the head because they've watched an advert on television that meat's bad for the planet or dairy's, evil because you're pulling the calves away or whatever, I think that's an entirely different ball game to educating people that are open to listening. It is
It's a fine
difficult.
balance.
It's very difficult.
Have you got any more questions there? I've got one here from Colin Bateman, AHDB YouTube, saying maybe we should think about linking inner city schools with farmers, like twinning schools or twinnings in cities. So I guess there's a bit of...
Yeah, there's a great organisation called Farms for City Kids who do residential visits, real life-changing visits, and it's really like a small-scale evacuee scheme. And when we think back to a couple of generations, people really connected with the land by being evacuated and spending amount of time.
Just say that again. What's the?
It's I think it's called Farms for City Kids. Kids. So they're great. They only have a certain number of visits they can do, but for those people, it is immersive. It's life changing. They'll look back on that as something which will have changed the course of their lives. And I'm speaking to a few of the younger guys this evening who are looking at what course do I take? I have an interest, but how do I get that from an interest and a subject into my life direction and calling? And it feels like a really big thing to be thinking about. But I think we really need to be helping you guys to move into our industry, to move into, well, not even our industry, into food production. We're here for you. It'd be great to hear more perhaps afterwards about how we can do that. How can we do that better?
Iona, as a sort of wish list, or if you had a magic wand,
Oh my goodness.
what would you like, and how can farmers help you, get the message out wider and to more teachers and to more students?
I think it works both ways. I think we as teachers need to be more confident to actually go, right, I need some help on this. I don't know enough about it myself. I need to improve my subject knowledge around these things so that I can provide a better education to my students. So we need to have the confidence to be able to reach out to the likes of yourselves to go, right, how can you support us? Could you give me some information on such and such, and not feel like we are incompetent in what we're doing. We know so much, but we don't know the nitty gritty because you guys are the professionals in those areas. And likewise, we were saying about the language exchange and things like that. I can teach you about the different key stages and the curriculums and how it ties in and what have you. And maybe we need to be doing more of that with each other so that it's on the right level for students. And I think we both almost need to help each other because, I quite often hear farmers going, yeah, we'll come and help. But it's what level can they help on? We need to be more specific about what we need from farmers as well. I think from the teacher's point of view. I'd love to see more farmers coming out to school and even doing small workshops on school site. I mean, we've got chickens here and we've got a polytunnel that I would love to be able to develop into like a cottage garden kitchen sort of thing for our students to then grow their own food and use it in our school kitchens. But we haven't got the resources to be able to do that. I would need volunteers to come in and help me manage that in lunch hours or after school clubs. our time is so tight as it is, whether it's in school or trying to get kids out of school, do things. We almost need a little bit more of that. Okay, if I can't come to you, is there any chance you could come in? Like you were saying, bring in the lambs or what have you, and do something. Put the tractor on the car park when we're doing food and farming day. All of that just switches on imagination. But yeah, wish list is.
The North in me just wish that went home and pigs all over the place.
It could have. Yeah, the whole thing could have gone wrong, really.
Right, and we've run out of time, so we'll wrap this up. But so Charlotte, if you repeat the questions for us, please, and we'll have a few. Make sure these two cheats, and as they did in their exams at school, and we'll just hear what you think. So
question 1: how many Food: A Fact of Life classroom resources were downloaded in the last year?
let's try. Have a stab.
How many food are 10,000?
I was going to go for.
I think there's 15,000 schools in the UK, so I'm going to say one per school, 15,000. Is that a bit high?
Do I give you the answer now?
Yes, give us the answer.
1.3 million.
What?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're getting some reach there.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
My number times my number.
Question 2: how many teacher training events did AHDB and the British Nutrition Foundation put on last year?
I want to say 4.
7.
4 plus 1 in Northern Ireland.
16.
I feel like
include
online.
online.
I feel like we got
Online
4.
as well.
Okay,
So it's a bit of a trick question there.
How many delegates attend these teacher training events?
In the last year, how many have come to them?
800.
Yes. How did you know? You've got that on
No,
Google.
I did 50 times 16.
Stop it. Quick maths. How many Twitter followers has Food: A Fact of Life?
None. Twitter doesn't exist.
Good point.
That was good.
X followers, over 10,000. And what age range does the resources cover?
All age ranges.
Yeah,
school
yeah,
kids.
All key
yeah,
stages.
3 to 16.
Not key stage 5.
Excellent. So if you're interested in that, have a look at the AHDB and British Nutrition Foundation Food: A Fact of Life resources. Give that a good plug.
Yeah, so foodafactoflife.org.uk. So check it out and increase our downloads. So even I'm 1.3 million.
Right, we're going to get it to 3.1 million.
Yeah. Farmertime.uk, farmers and teachers. Join us.
Excellent. So I'm going to go around and take home, or one thing that's you're going to do, or you've been asking the audience to do, going out there in a minute. And then we'll start wrapping it up. So I'm going to start. No, I started this side last time, and then we'll go around that after who we are and where they can find Roz. So one take home
From today.
from today, to people to do, to remember.
So I think in terms of, obviously farmers, in terms of this action, I guess Iona, you talked about this in terms of how you can support schools, but also help us get the word out about the resources that we've got.
Maybe if farmers could engage with their schools. Sorry, I've got Max waving at me here in the background behind camera. If farmers could go out and engage with maybe the local schools, or wave at kids that wave to you in a tractor.
Yeah.
Mine would be, it isn't costly to engage with children on farm, either infrastructure-wise, which I didn't consider. I had it in my head, building a classroom, which is obviously a very costly thing. Obviously that isn't needed. And it's not costly time-wise either, which is something I didn't know.
I'm going to say, sign up to Farm Time and get involved with just put social media, try and tackle any subject that you want to talk about, whether it's dairy, beef, whatever you do on farm. And if you don't want to do it, support those that do and promote them.
For me, I would say if there's any farmers in the Chipping Campden area that would like to reach out to us at school, I would love to sort of work with you and see what we can do, certainly moving forward with our food and farming day. I know I've got loads of students that would love to engage. And also, I think I'd like to see, off the back of this, just being able to work a bit more with the people on this panel, breaking down those barriers of language between the two different sectors, so that we are all speaking off the same page.
Love it. Yeah. Farming is the fourth industry I've worked in. In all the other three industries, every meeting, whatever it's about, has involved marketing. We've thought about marketing and branding, and farmers, you need to be thinking about marketing. It's not the job of somebody else to do that. And all this engagement is part of your marketing. It's part of your job to further your industry. And I would also say carry the conversation on social media as well. There's lots of people who are really interactive. So if you've got questions, if you want to find out where and how to engage, get in touch with the AHDB, with Leaf Education, anyone here, and we promise we'll be not grumpy.
Listen, I just think following on from that, like if they are going to engage with students, there is nothing more rewarding than seeing that light bulb moment with a student. It is the most amazing, incredible feeling when a student goes, "Oh my goodness, I've got that," or "I never knew that. Wow."
My take home is I should be doing farmer time. No excuse. I will be doing it. And also just to reiterate, some farmers can see school visits as, it's probably not for everyone, but some people can see that it's, very, very difficult risk assessments, etc. But there's a lot of help out there, and there's a lot of people willing to have a conversation with you to help you do your first visit. And once you've done one and you've got a teacher on board, then it will all snowball from there.
Just get over yourself.
Yeah.
That just leaves me to say thank you very much. First of all, thank you to everybody that listened online, putting in your questions. That's really what makes this what it is. So thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for our live audience for not making my worst nightmare come true. So thank you to you guys. Thanks to the panel here. And we'll just go quickly remind us who you are just on social if you've got that. But
so Roz Reynolds, Head of Education at AHDB.
Joe Seels on YouTube and TikTok.
Charlotte Ashley, Farm, on all socials.
Yeah, Baldy's Farm on socials.
I'm Izak, AgriIzak on socials.
Iona Corbett, Head of Food and Nutrition at Chipping Campden School, or iCorbett at camden.school.
That's Farmer Tom, Village Farm, or Farmer Time, or any combination of those.
James Taylor, Broughton Grounds Farm. I've only got Facebook.
Right, so thank you very much, and not least of all to Iona for organising this, and for Chipping Campden School for giving us this great facilities. Thanks again for all of you listening online. Have a look at the resources and get involved. Thank you very much.